And welcome on in, everybody. Nathan King and Jason Caldwell here with Auburn Undercover. Jason, we're back. We made it through a long off season, a fun off season, but obviously there is nothing like the first weekend of college football. Welcome to week one, everybody, here inside Jordan-Hare Stadium. Auburn takes on Alabama A&M at 6:30 Central Time. Jason, of course, this is a game Auburn is expected to win by a bunch. So we're expecting some opportunities here to see a lot of players on the field. We saw these kinds of games last year when Auburn would get out of hand a little bit. We saw, 80, 90 guys potentially on the field. But this is a game where I think the first half in particular, you wrote about it this week, we're looking for execution. Because anytime you're working in, I know the scheme is familiar for Hugh Freeze, but you're working in a new offensive coordinator at the end of the day. But you're also working in a lot of new receivers. I think that position in particular, Hugh Freeze talked about it this week, eliminating the missed assignments from those young players that obviously so many people in here are excited to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key. You look at it and even we saw earlier today, Georgia's offense, it took a little while to get going, and that's an offense that has a lot of guys back, including the quarterback, and mixing in a few new receivers. It took them until the second half to really find some rhythm, and a lot of that started by running the football. And so I think that'll be the thing to watch for today. Can Auburn run the football, establish that early? That'll key the RPO system. I think we'll see some of that. I don't know that we'll see a ton of really wild formations, all those things, but I think, RPOs, but you're right, that comes down to decision making. The wide receivers make the same read as Peyton Thorne and the quarterbacks, and then can they go and execute those things? So yeah, I think when you start with it, everybody's going to be watching Auburn's offense, Peyton Thorne, and the passing game to see if they can click early. Even though sometimes it might take a little time. Yeah,
obviously everybody's going to be looking forward to seeing Cam Coleman in his first time in Jordan-Hare Stadium in a game. Obviously the last time he was here at the spring game, he wowed everybody in here with some spectacular plays. These other freshmen as well, somebody like Malcolm Simmons, somebody we talked about this week, Bryce Kane, I think later as the game goes on, you're seeing them in the third, fourth quarters against a worn down defense. And for that matter, Hank Brown, the backup quarterback, one of the reasons he won this job is because of his ability to push the ball downfield. So I think they will be running the ball. You'll playing it safe in the second half, running the clock out, but you'll also see potentially him taking some downfield shots as well. What are you looking for today from DJ Durkin's defense? Because I think if you were to break it down, all three levels of this group, there are interesting things to watch today.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of different formations. We saw them attacking, doing all those things early on. I don't know how much we'll see of that today. I wonder if it's going to be a little bit more of a base defense, let those guys go make plays. I think the thing for me, I'm watching these young guys. Talked about it today. The young secondary, how much do we see Keontae Scott?
Right.
Even Kayan Lee's a guy that's only played in every game last year, but he started 4 and really was a reserve in the rest of them. Keontae Scott hasn't played corner. He's been a nickel. Then after that, you got guys that haven't played. And so watching those corners, this is a team with Quad Brown on the other side. They got some receivers. They'll come out and throw a little bit. So for me, it's corners, how they hold up, and then the front. Can you create some pressure against, I think, what's a pretty decent Alabama A&M offensive line? can that front four create it without having to blitz and send a bunch of guys?
Yeah, Quad Brown is the guy. I didn't realize until you brought him up the other day, Jason. I think he played in this game with Georgia State. I want to say I remember his name.
He wasn't the starter, but I think he was playing some in that role, and is a guy that I'd watch going back to high school.
Yep, and then that offensive line, of course, they have a Senior Bowl watch list player up there. They might be able to create some issues there for Auburn's defense. We've talked about this week. I'm really excited for late in the second half. There just hasn't been in several years a defense like this at Auburn with the depth of talent, having guys like Amaris Williams and Jamonte Waller and DeMarcus Riddick and TJ Lindsey, guys like that in the second half, who are really going to be excited about their opportunity to tee off. Switching back over to the offense, Tyler Johnson looks like he'll get the start here today at left tackle. We don't know that for sure, but that's how things were in practice. All of that is to say there will probably be plenty of offensive linemen who play with that first group, because that's what Freeze said. He's, quote, it's going to take a few weeks to get that group solidified.
Yeah, I think we'll see Connor Lew at center, Jeremiah Wright at right guard, Tall Miller at right tackle. I think those three are pretty secure. Yep. The left side is where we'll see some rotation. I think we'll see, you're right, I think we'll see Tyler Johnson at left tackle. I think we'll see Dylan Wade at left guard. I think we'll see Dylan Wade at left tackle, and then maybe Tate Johnson at left guard. And then you might see Percy Lewis at left tackle, and then Dylan Wade back in there at left guard. I think, hey, what's it look like? What do those things look like from a perspective of how everybody fits together and does all those things? And so, but I think there'll be some rotation as they look for that top 5 group.
Yeah, one of the most important aspects of today is getting things on film. This is your first opportunity, quite literally, of the entire year to do that. Once this is all said and done, Jason, who are a couple guys that you think can maybe stand out today? Who are some players you're watching for? And I guess just kind of a general prediction for how tonight is going to go.
Yeah, I think, for me, a guy like Malcolm Simmons, a guy with get some touches, and a guy that you might get a chance to see in action. Maybe early on, they might create some plays and some opportunities for a guy like him. And so I think he's a guy to watch. And then, I think you look defensively. I think, some of those young guys in the secondary, you mentioned Amaris Williams, Jamonte Waller, Malik Autry, some of those guys, and maybe a guy like Bobby Jameson Travis. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to get extensive reps and play a little bit more, maybe show what he can do.
Yeah, we hadn't even mentioned the defensive line rotation. Me personally, that's something I'll be really interested to see. Number one, how that blueprint looks in a game setting. We've seen them rotating after just a couple plays as often as they can, because they feel like, okay, if we don't have a superstar type player, let's get 7 or 8 guys who are playing limited snaps so they're more explosive and fresher coming off of the bench. Obviously, the number one thing today is the fact that Auburn returns to the field to open up the 2024 season. But Jason, some storylines as well on the recruiting front. Not only, obviously, Deuce Knight is a guy that was anticipated, but as you guys have reported this week, lots of other trends for Auburn going the right way as well. So to touch on that a little bit, we'll bring in our Christian Clemente.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. It's Jason, we previewed it a little bit earlier in the week. We said Deuce Knight for sure, and we said don't be surprised if a couple other guys pop up. Did we really think Hugh Freeze and his staff were going to take a weekend off on recruiting?
No.
You've got Deuce Knight, a 5-star in the 24/7 Sports Composite. Got Neem Offord, the 5-star commit to Ohio State. Elijah Melendez, the former Miami commit as of
this morning,
4 hours ago, decommitted from Auburn, or decommitted from Miami after arriving in Auburn for a visit. So you can put the puzzle pieces together there. But Jason, it of course all starts with Deuce Knight. That's what everyone wants to talk about, and everyone wants to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and we're kind of waiting to see. I think we're both and been on this for a couple of weeks now. We expect Deuce Knight to be a commitment to Auburn sooner rather than later. Will that be today? Will it be tonight? Tomorrow? Next week? Nobody's quite sure. What we do know is it's huge that he is here this weekend. And obviously I think Auburn it feels really good about their situation. And I think you got to feel good if you're Auburn and thinking about a quarterback to put in this class because of the puzzle pieces that could come along with that down the road.
Correct, and I don't think it's a coincidence. Now you want to get top talent on campus as much as possible, but I don't think it's a coincidence that when you're getting Deuce Knight in, you're bringing in Usman Kroma, you're bringing in Neem Offord, you're bringing in some of your top targets. You might bring them in a little small room, maybe in the Heisman room over there by the locker room or something like that. Try and get them all together with the current commits and see, look, what kind of magic can we make happen. Neem Offord is a guy that we've been watching really, really closely. Our Tom Loy from the national team on 24/7 Sports put in a crystal ball for Auburn to flip him earlier today. We're not quite at that point yet, but we don't necessarily disagree with where Tom's headed either, for that matter.
No, absolutely. It's a guy that I think, when we were visiting in the spring, we were like, I don't know about that one. And then when he took an official visit in June and we saw the connection happening then, you could see that, okay, this one is legit real. And it's been growing since that point.
And I wrote in my confidential that Big Cat Weekend was kind of the turning point, where it's like, okay, this is possible to
probable.
Yes, yeah, so I'd agree with that. And then Elijah Melendez, I mean, we should touch on him as well. That's a guy that we wrote on going into the week. Put in my big board that, moving him up in the percentage. Weren't able to share that he was going to visit at that point. Later in that afternoon, we were. So that all kind of became clear. And now he's obviously decommitted, put in some picks for Auburn there. And it seems like, again, connect the puzzle pieces there. You've been waiting on Tyler Lockhart, and you still want Tyler Lockhart, but you could easily get Elijah Melendez in the boat sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just adds to this class. You keep building momentum. That's what recruiting's all about. And then you think about a couple of still big fish that aren't visiting this weekend. They're still out there on the offensive line that might be impacted by things that happen this weekend. So all in all, should be a big day, could be a huge day.
Yes, I mean, Cedarian Morgan, late visitor edition, the number 7 player in the country in 2026. So ton of names, mentioned Usman Kroma. Really interested to see how that one kind of goes this weekend. He's a very, very impressionable, and he has not been to Auburn for a game. He definitely was not at a game last year. Maybe he was the year before, but it's been a while, so this is a good opportunity with him to try and fill out your running back recruiting class. So we'll have that all covered for you throughout the day at auburnundercover.com. As you're watching this, the Game Day Recruiting Notebook is already up, and we'll have everything else covered throughout the day. So I appreciate everyone tuning in.